Today we're talking with Daystar Rosalie Jones, a Pembina Chippewa woman who dances, sings, and tells stories about Native American people and places. If you're listening to this as an audio-only format, please note that this episode has a heavy visual component. The visuals are not necessary to follow the conversation, but they are very worth looking at, and I encourage you to check out the video version of the podcast later. Hi, I'm Larry Moss, and I'd like to welcome you to Brush with Knowledge. Throughout this series, we're going to explore the role of teaching artistry as a tool to transform education and ignite your imagination. In each episode, we'll highlight the work of a different teaching artist and offer ideas that you can use in your own classrooms, meetings, and even the larger communities you serve and live in. So welcome, Rosalie. I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and who Daystar Dance is.
All right. Thank you, Larry. I'm very happy to be here. This is a wonderful, amazing, innovative series of podcasts for teaching artists, about teaching artists. My name is Daystar Rosalie Jones. I was born on the Blackfeet Reservation in Montana, and in 1980, I formed my company, which is called Daystar, full name, Contemporary Dance Drama of Indian America. The first such company to be established in the United States, and I really take great pride in that. I am a teaching artist. I am a performer, a dancer, choreographer, writer. I've been recently doing writing. I do have published writings on Indigenous dance and theater in a contemporary sense. So I live here in Rochester, New York, and I love it.
So you said you're a teaching artist, and you've been doing this for many, many years now. But the art itself that supports the teaching artistry piece of it is very connected to your identity as an Indigenous American. And yes. I am fascinated by the way I've seen in your dance and the things that I've worked with you on, the way you've brought in Indigenous culture. This isn't just about dancing, and you said contemporary dance, but that feels odd. You're doing things from your past, from your history, from your cultural heritage.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up right away, because that is who I am. It's perhaps a long story how I gravitated through training in dance and my early years and forming the company and finally sort of settling into that
well, let's start with
cultural milieu, I guess.
Okay, so what kind of training did you have that brought you to this?
Okay, so being born on the Blackfeet Reservation is formidable in itself. And both my parents were people who wanted their children to advance to the utmost degree. And you can't really get that at that time, which this is the 1940s and 50s. You couldn't even really get good education on an elementary or high school level that had any cultural components. I mean, you get your high school degree, but unemployment was, almost none to speak of. So they had to move from the reservation out into the broader world. And part of that whole growing up was, you are going to college. Don't even think about anything else. You are going. So I got a bachelor's degree in music. And later on, got the master's degree in dance. Music was very dear to my heart. And again, my parents really went to the nth degree to get me music lessons, art lessons that weren't provided in the schools in those days. And when I went off to college, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I mean, how to pick a subject even, of
so
study.
at that point, you were not thinking that dance was going to be your future.
That's right. That's right. So I say to young people out there, give yourself time. You need to have a variety of experiences, and it's the final, passion that you're going to have comes along the way after you've had these experiences. And so finally I was introduced to modern dance on the college level. And I have to tell a little story here because it really ties into how I think, how I progress in my life. I was taking a visual arts class, painting class. And there were, 10 or 12 of us. And the instructor comes in and she's looking at all our work, and we're expecting, of course, a critique and, for our work. And all of a sudden she says, you will never do anything really creative and original until it comes from who you are. Now, I don't know that she was addressing me personally. She was addressing the class. But it hit me like a ton of bricks because I hadn't paid any attention up until that point who I am. And that it had any deep connection to the kind of art I was going to produce. So that started me on my journey, really, to a journey of discovering my own identity. You'd think that would be, of course, obvious. Born on the Blackfeet Reservation, you have Chippewa ancestry. Your mother is that Native person. My father was Welsh from Canada. So in a sense, I was sort of walking the fence between two cultures, the native and the non-native. But when this instructor said that, it just, wow. It started me on that path.
So your parents were pushing this whole formal education. You're going to get a college degree, at least one, or keep going.
Yes.
Did it feel suddenly at this point like you had to relearn and rediscover and go backwards, or was this a jump forward?
Definitely jump forward. And at the same time, in the same small college, I took a modern dance class. I had never had a modern dance class. I had ballet and tap and jazz and all that. And I didn't think too much of it. It was interesting, but, nothing big. But modern dance, in taking that class, yes, there's the whole physical component, which I really like, which is you get conditioned, you get fit, but you also get to do creative work. And all of a sudden, I discovered I could choreograph my own dances. I didn't have to follow a score, a musical score on a page, and do somebody else's music. I could do my own music, my own dance. And that was the other clincher for me to really move into dance, modern dance. And so I enrolled at the University of Utah, got the master's degree, and there I had to come up with a thesis concept to get the degree. So what am I going to write about and also do a performance of? So again, this is the point where I realized I could pull together where I came from, the Blackfeet Reservation, their culture, their stories. And I actually got permission from the chief of the Blackfeet people, Earl Oldperson, who has just recently passed, longest in his term as chief. And he gave me permission to film and observe the Blackfeet Medicine Lodge ceremony. And from that material, I was able to write the thesis, do the research, and choreograph an original production. So it was based in my culture right there.
So thankfully, then you were able to pick up and work with this and now teach it for many years to others so that none of this, the culture that you learned about was lost.
Yes.
Was this the start of the Daystar Dance Company, or did you spend time then working with other companies?
No, this was not the start of Daystar Dance Company. I had the good fortune also to get a scholarship to Juilliard School in New York City, studied there with Jose Limon, who is a very important figure in American modern dance. He was Mexican, came to the United States, became a dancer. He was one of my first mentors. So anyway, again, that's the fusing of the culture in a contemporary art form. So I started teaching and did quite a lot of teaching and performing. And in 1980, I was living in Wisconsin. And again, through the help, I think we all need our mentors and our helpers who believe in what we do. And I was able to get assistance to incorporate the company as the Daystar Dance Company. And that was the beginning of the company there in Wisconsin.
All right. Now, you brought with you a bunch of stuff, including some video and that you wanted to be able to show and talk about a little bit. And again, for those that are listening, we're going to talk through things. If you're watching, we'll bring up a little bit. What would you like to start with?
Thank you for guiding me into that. There is a video section from actually my main, what I call my signature production called No Home But the Heart. And it is actually the story of my family. So it's the story of Susan Big Knife, who was my great-grandmother, Cree woman from Canada, and my grandmother, Rose, and my mother, Amy, and myself. So it's 4 generations And it's a historical look at really the history of indigenous peoples on this continent, which we call Turtle Island. Their dislocation, their losing of land, and their forced assimilation, and but also their survival into contemporary times. If you're watching visually, you're seeing a scene that's actually called Mistaken Identity. And this is something that I went through myself in my young years, still already working with Daystar Dance Company. And I was amazed to experience myself that the general public, this was like the 60s and 70s, in this country, people were not aware of or cognizant or aware is the best word, of Native people living right amongst them. I mean, to look at any of us, if we're not wearing beads and feathers, you don't know that we're Native. We could be anybody. So this mistaken identity scene is really that I am still constantly being mistaken for Chinese heritage or Japanese or something Asian, but not as a Native American. And that to me really reflects back on the public school system. In the public school system, it is not enough teaching about the Native American population. Here in Rochester, we're living on the land of the Haudenosaunee, and we have Ganondagan as a museum and historical center. We're very fortunate to have that. So the public school system is keying into that. They do use Ganondagan to help teach who are the Native people whose land we are actually living on and working on. But there are 574 federally recognized tribes in the United States. So this learning has to go beyond Haudenosaunee so that I am included as Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Chippewa, Cree person. So I realize the public school has lots of curriculum to negotiate and navigate through, but they only get a unit every 4 years. Every 4 years, they should have a unit every year.
Well, this is where you come in as the teaching artist that goes into schools,
yes,
and uses the art of Native Americans to teach about Native Americans.
Yes.
So I'll put you on the spot here because we didn't talk about this before. If you're talking about the necessary lessons that need to be shared with, well, I was going to say our young people, but with everybody.
Yes.
Because everybody needs this exposure. What if you could teach people something right now, an exercise that you could give that then somebody listening or watching this discussion could go and do in their own classrooms, what would that be?
Yes. The first thing I would do is teach a song. And I'm going to sing a little bit of a song because it's short and it's called the Welcoming Song. Yay, hoo, yay, hoo, yay, hoo, yay. Yay, hoo, yay, ha, ha. Yay, ha, ha. Yay, ha, ha. And that's the entire song. And it's from the Northwest Coast. And I'm fortunate to know that song because I studied with Karen Strong, who is Tlingit. And that's part of my whole training in Native cultures that didn't happen at the university. I've traveled enough across Turtle Island and North America that I've met many different tribal people. So that's an easy song that could be taught on any grade level. And it has gestures that go with it, that you're welcoming people into your classroom or into your home or into your territory. So that's an easy one. Another thing I would do is the round dance. Now, the round dance is probably very ancient. Everyone stands in a circle, and you have the drum that gives you the unifying beat, and everyone takes hands and dances to the left around in a circle, the round dance. 2 things you could do in the classroom.
Awesome. Are there other things that you bring with you into the classroom when you go, things that you want to share? I'm thinking of you've shown me the medicine wheel.
Yes.
We were talking about masks. What are some of these other important?
Yes. Okay. So more recently, thanks to Ganondagan, actually, myself and my good friend Kay Wilbert, who's of Cherokee ancestry, who's a musician, got the funding for us to do a full evening show at Ganondagan. And one of the things we did was the hoop dance. So the hoop dance is based on the circle. So I'm going to show this very simple circle. This is a circle. It's also a hoop. And the larger version of this is the hoop with which the hoop dancers dance, and they pass their bodies through a very large hoop. And this, again, is something that can go into the classroom very easily. And if I were going in, I would bring the larger version, and you can see that this has points indicated around the circle. And you have yellow in the east, red in the south, black or blue in the west, and white in the north. So each of these indicates a direction. And each of these points also has an animal associated with it, plants associated. The medicine wheel would have been used, and I think is still used today, to indicate when to plant crops and when to harvest crops. Also herbs that are used for healing. So seasons of the year. The sun comes up in the east. You have the hot sun of the day. The sun goes down, and you have night. And you have spring, summer, autumn, winter. There's a lot of native information found in this medicine wheel.
Now, you brought a video with you also that is a hoop dance.
Yes, yes.
So why don't you talk about that a little bit? We'll bring that up for
okay,
those that
and
are
thank
watching.
you for moving into that, because this was hoop dance that was done at Ganondagan. And usually the hoop dance is performed by a single dancer. And that single dancer is going to dance with 5, 10, 15, 20 hoops. The professional hoop dancers might dance with 30 to 50 hoops. And there's actually a championship competition that happens every year at the Phoenix Indian Center. But here with the Daystar Dance Company, we are dancing with one hoop each, and we are using that hoop to do various manipulations, creative designs. The designs come from nature, so you might see the idea of a waterfall or a basket or an animal. And the cultural teaching behind this hoop dance, for those who are actually dancing the hoop dance, is that the more hoops you can dance with, the more of life's challenges that you can meet. So yes, it's a physical dance, and in a sense, maybe it ties in with other physical disciplines that you become stronger, you become more flexible, you are able to anticipate what your next challenge is going to be and meet that challenge. So here the dancers are working as a team so that the one hoop becomes 4 hoops, and they pass it through their body. So the other cultural teaching here is this was once a ceremonial ritual for healing, so that if you pass your body through the hoop, that is the healing that you're asking for.
Now, everything that we have talked about so far has been teaching. You've been talking about the culture and the hoops, the props involved, and we've sort of been on teaching from the very beginning. But I want to focus specifically on your teaching artistry career and how. Well, let's start with, how do you define a teaching artist?
Oh boy. Well, first of all, you need to be an artist. So you have to be a person who has trained in a specific field, whether it's visual, auditory, physical, whatever it is, and gained a real, you've gained a maturity in being able to create within that art form. So there's a good deal of, first of all, training, and secondly, creative work, original creative work. The other thing is that that person needs to be willing to become a teacher. I feel that every artist should be a teacher, but perhaps not everyone really wants to do that. So I think the teaching artist is a person who has an empathy with young people, that you want to be able to pass on to the younger generation your skills. And in that sense, being a teaching artist is a very Indigenous cultural skill, because we are always taught, no matter what tribe you might be affiliated with or whatever your age is, you are taught to pass down your knowledge to the younger generation, Because if you don't do it, who's going to do it?
Do you see that as specific to Native American culture, or do you think every culture seems to want to?
I would hope it's every culture, yeah. Because many, most of our population here in North America has come from another country. The Italians, Hungarians, French, as well as of various religions, not only Christianity, but the Islam, Muslims, the Jewish people, and other indigenous cultures from Africa, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, whatever it might be. And in that sense, I don't like the word melting pot because I don't think we have melted. I think we have reformed ourselves into the American landscape, on the American land, which is indigenous land. And I think in that sense, we do have to constantly acknowledge the indigenous peoples and that we are all part of what constitutes being American. Yeah.
So I've just let you talk on, which is fantastic because I think you kind of answered the next question that I wanted to ask, but I'm going to bring it up specifically was what do students learn through your art that is more than just, because you referred to yourself as an artist and said teaching artists need to have a mastery of their art, but you've gone a little, but you weren't talking so much there about teaching the art, you were talking about all of these other things we need to understand.
Yes. And that is, that's become very natural to me. I mean, it's innate in my personality, actually, in who I am. When I was studying modern dance in the university, of course, we had our choreographic assignments. And for the most part, early on, I was choreographing within the Western mindset, I guess I'll put it that way. And it's very interesting to me. If you look at Martha Graham in particular, Jose Limon to some extent, other choreographers who are well known in the United States, Isadora Duncan, way back, some of the more modern choreographers, I think there was a period of time when contemporary choreography was all about expressing yourself. And of course, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm expressing myself. But much of that was embedded in psychological states, such as anger, joy, grief, fear, and how those emotions are felt within us as we go through every day and as we go through our lives. But I think when you work from a cultural base, the personal emotion is not as important as the cultural context. And I think we find this in Jose Limon, who had a very deep-seated social conscience. And he was expressing certainly his personal experience of coming to America and finding dance. But he very much was still Mexican, and he expressed that in his dances, which very often had a historical base. And I do that to a certain extent, for instance, with No Home But the Heart. And I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yeah, well, you started going into some of the, not just emotion, but storytelling aspect of the art. And
yes.
I mean, that's what dance is. That's what all of the arts are. Everything is about telling some story. And with you and with any teaching artist, it's using the art to teach and to get across concepts and all of that. You had one more video that...
yes. Okay. The last video is called Wolf, a Transformation.
Which I think, jumping into the storytelling piece.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Storytelling is what it's all about. Yes. Wolf, a Transformation was, as a choreographer, I'll say that it was my breakthrough piece, because I was given permission from an elder to tell this story, which is an Anishinaabe or Chippewa story of how the wolf was given to the first man as a companion. And I'm sure that other cultures have similar stories of relationships between humans and animals. But this particular dance then allowed me to use another part of my training, which is mask making. And in the wolf, the dancer wears masks all the way through. So it's an opportunity for instance, if you're performing this for any age group, elementary, teenagers, adults, they see what can be done with the mask. And for me as a choreographer, this was a major breakthrough, that I didn't have to go out on stage with my own face. I could create a mask that was a character. So in the wolf, specifically, you become the wolf. In other dances, you might become another sort of animal, or you might become the wind or the water, or you might become a human character that's living through whatever the story is. So for me, the mask opened up a whole new genre, really. And certainly in teaching, it's a whole new aspect that you can work with in the classroom. But for me, again, as a choreographer, frankly, when I was studying mask making, I had become very disenchanted with modern dance. I was tired of it. I had studied all the forms, and I was doing choreography, and I was working with costuming and et cetera. But when you put on a mask, it's a whole other thing. I mean, it's a whole transformation in itself, wearing the mask. And you can work with the mask on a very high level of theatrical skill, or you can do it on a very simple level. Everybody wears a mask at Halloween. You're becoming something else other than yourself. It can be grotesque. It can be funny. The range has no limits, really. I love the mask.
You can hide behind the mask too.
Yes,
and
hide behind the mask. And that's actually how I used it with grade school, is that if they were afraid to get out on stage, they were not afraid if they were in a mask.
Yes, I was just going to say, if you asked me to get up and dance, I would have a really hard time with people watching me, but let me put on a costume and hide, and
Yes.
I feel a lot more free.
Yes.
So you've done a lot of things in your career. Is there something, looking back as a teacher, as an artist, is there something you would have done differently?
Oh, my. That I would have done differently.
Yeah, something, and maybe even a change as you've seen teaching artistry grow and the use of art in classrooms, or what changes would you have made earlier if you could have, or what changes would you like to make going forward?
Okay, there could probably be a number of answers to that, but I'm going to bring up one specifically that doesn't have to do with performing at all or teaching at all, which is the business of art. And when I was so, you're so wrapped up in enjoying what you're doing and finding the innovations of that, I never studied the business of art. And now I wish I had, because I would have done a lot of other things differently. When you're working with a budget, you're trying to get funding for what you want to do, and applying for grants or having side jobs to have enough money to do what you want to do. The way I funded Daystar Dance Company was to teach. And I always had a university faculty job all through those years, through 40 years of what I've been doing. And that money went to Daystar Dance Company. That's how I funded my company. I actually did do grants writing for a while, but I never got anything. So I'm not a very good grants writer. I mean, I think even today, I need training in how to write a grant.
I think that is a common issue for so many people. Wouldn't it be great if the arts were funded in a way that we could all just go out and create,
Yes.
and not ever have to worry about, can I buy food later?
Can I throw in a political statement here?
Sure, let's go for it.
I always try to bring this up because I did manage to get a grant from the NEA, National Endowment for the Arts, in 1995. Yeah. I actually had lost my job at the Institute of American Indian Arts because of the political, invasion by the Republican Party, who wanted to close the school. This is a 4-year liberal arts college specifically for Native people, Native Americans who want to study the arts, get a degree, become an artist. So I had just come out of that, and I actually wrote a letter of complaint to the National Endowment for the Arts. And I said, I've applied for grants for years. I've never gotten anything. How long do the Native peoples who are artists have to wait until you give them money to assist in their development? And all of a sudden, I got $20,000. And that happened to be the last year that NEA was giving individual choreographer fellowships. They don't exist anymore. So when Native choreographers apply to the NEA, they are in competition with the Metropolitan Opera, the Martha Graham Company, the big professional companies. And is it any wonder that there's no money left over for us? I worked in Canada at a university for 12 years in the 2000s. I retired in 2017, came back to Rochester, New York. The Canada Council for the Arts has developed, maybe, I don't know, it's probably 10 years ago now. They have grant categories for the First Nations peoples in all of the arts, for choreography, for theater, for script writing, for filmmaking, for visual arts. And so you can apply within those categories. I send out a red hot message to the NEA. When are you going to create categories for the First Peoples of the United States?
I am so glad you brought that up. This is, it's important. One of my hopes, one of the reasons I am doing this and talking to everybody that I am on Brush with Knowledge is specifically to advocate for teaching artistry, for artistry, for this is a problem that we face, and there is no question when you look at the history, Native Americans have been denied so much. So thank you. And I think ending on a note like that is fantastic. So
is a good one.
Yeah, I think everybody listening, keep that in mind. Let's push this. Let's get folks at the NEA to listen to this.
Yes.
Maybe they'll fund this podcast and we can do more more
right.
of these and bring you back to talk about even more.
Okay.
So thank you so much, Rosalie.
Thank you, Chimagwich. Love doing it.
To learn more about everyone on our program, follow the links in the show notes and at brushwithknowledge.com. This podcast has been launched with funding from Genesee Valley Council on the Arts and the New York State Council on the Arts. Recording has been done at Rockvox Recording and Production. To learn how you can help support the creation of future episodes, please follow links in the show notes or visit brushwithknowledge.com.